All right. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's I Quit My Band. Another JJ-less episode.
Yeah, our truce was short-lived.
Yeah. We're back on non-speaking terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Maybe this Tuesday, I feel like we might be able to patch
might have
things
to,
up.
yeah. Next Sunday, I think things might be back together, but we'll see. Yeah, we're gonna have to agree on some things, like the Dare. He didn't, maybe he didn't want to.
Yeah.
He had better things to do. He had to go see St. Vincent for the 900th time in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean,
that boy loves St. Vincent.
Yeah, and I think if not to spoil the review, but given the choice between seeing St. Vincent and then
doing an hour-long review of the Dare.
Yeah, I think our boy won out. I think our boy.
I'd rather be right here.
I'd be right here talking about girls.
This is what I like to do. A song that we've already talked about on the show for an album that, hey, we'll get to it. We won't spoil it. But everyone, thanks for being here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Go follow us on Instagram and TikTok and Patreon. We got a new Patreon episode up called Let's Double Get It On.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to watch the show to know what that means.
Yeah, that's a little piece of lore for you.
I was hoping my brother would see that and be like, please tell me you said the thing that we've been thinking that song said for years. But he didn't catch on.
Yeah, I don't think he pays attention to us anymore.
The last time we talked about the show, he was like, "You guys are still doing that?" And that was like 8 months ago.
Yeah, that's an accurate.
You guys aren't still doing that, are
response.
you? Yeah. I love when people say that. It's like, "Oh, that's still going."
Yeah.
You're like, "Yeah, it's my life."
It's great to see, like when you roll out a podcast, you see like people like, "Oh, hey, that's cool." They're thinking in their head 6 months.
Yeah. Oh no, dude. We're going. We're almost 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
About a year and a half, a little over.
Yeah.
Not with the guy-atus that fucked us.
Yeah,
real bad.
2 guys.
I just shouldn't have got married, dude.
No, you
should not have taken that break.
And really, that's what your brother's best man speech was all about. You should have listened to it.
It actually was. For those who don't know, my brother's best man speech was like, "Does anyone listen to Nate's podcast?" He literally said,
me and JJ sitting at that guest table, like, yay.
Just hiding your faces.
Yeah, God. Couldn't have given us a decent plug. Dude.
Yeah, not even a shout out. But anyways, we're reviewing another album today. We had a nice, bountiful harvest of music yesterday.
Yeah.
2 albums came out that we're looking forward to both of them. One of them was the MJ Lenderman album, Manning Fireworks, which we're going to review soon. And the other one was this new one by The Dare called What's Wrong with New York. We've talked about The Dare before on the show. When Girls came out. Mm-hmm. I think it was when the Sex EP came out, and he was getting some flack for his album cover for it being like sexualizing children or whatever, but it really wasn't.
No, they were adult women.
It was adult women,
and they had like clothes on.
Yeah, like that's his whole thing. That's the Dare's whole thing, is like throwing the throwback to indie sleaze, and that's what the aesthetic was. And he goes, so far just to wear, the black suit with the skinny tie, very reminiscent of LCD Sound System.
Yeah.
Much
or
like
Lex Friedman. Like, if you just saw that picture, you're like, that is Lex Friedman.
The Lex Friedman album.
Yeah, we're kind of Lex Friedman core.
Yeah. Just every track is his Donald Trump interview, just broken down into 10 tracks.
His Donald Trump interview might be as long as this album. Like, it was like 25 minutes.
I love how Donald Trump being interviewed on a podcast used to be like, that. I can't, that's crazy. Now it's like Theo Vaughn.
The real meeting of the minds, the Louisiana.
He'll do anything, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very reminiscent of LCD Sound System with his album cover, and just also with everything about his sound and his songs. His name, I actually did some research.
Oh,
I did the research
this time. Here we go.
We always get hit with the research cannon. And
the research, they're ready at the ready to just let that rip, dude.
Yeah. So I did a little research. His name is Harrison Smith. This guy, he had a music career that didn't quite take off. His name was Turtlenecked. And I listened to a little bit of Turtlenecked, and it was synth pop, Nothing crazy. And I guess he started making music as the Dare as like a joke. It was more like he was just like making songs to send to his friends exclusively during the pandemic. Girls was one of them, and he was just kind of trying to like do the goofiest shit possible. And then like he started working girls into his sets as turtlenecked, and people liked that more, which is so like that realization, having a show just playing the songs that you're serious about, and the one you're like, this one's real stupid, and everyone's like, yes,
Yeah, that has to be
only
rough.
that.
You're like, well, I guess that's my new personality now.
That's what I have to do. So yeah, I feel for the guy. You know, he was a waiter, he was a substitute teacher, I'm pretty sure. And he's having some success as the Dare, and I feel like he's getting a lot of flack for doing what he's doing, kind of like reviving indie sleaze in this like direct of a way.
Yeah, I think like when we listened to Girls, I was like, oh, this is a fun song. It's kind of provocative, a little edgy, tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
And I thought almost nothing of it. I thought he would just kind of be someone on the outskirts that you would hear from time to time, push a button or two. And I didn't think about the Dare for a year.
Yeah.
And then I looked at their Spotify. They have 2.2 million listeners.
Yeah, went huge.
New York Times wrote like a whole article about them. And I feel like there's this, like he's being pinned as like the front of like a new movement or something in reviving indie sleaze, and like hearing the like backstory of how the project actually came to be, that seems more like after listening to the album, that sounds a little more likely than a guy being like, it's New York '04 all over again, you know?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, he's definitely a guy that probably like I think he's like 28 years old, 30 years old, somewhere around there. So like this stuff is definitely like what he probably grew up listening to in his teens or early 20s, being like, you know, this is the coolest shit ever. You can tell he grew up on this stuff, thinks it's the coolest thing ever. Like kind of like I mean, I loved bands like the Yeah Death Row Above 1979.
Strokes, you were a big
The Strokes.
guy.
Yeah, I'm a big Strokes guy. This is not exactly like the Strokes, but it's a cool genre and time to like want to revive.
Yeah, and I think it's had like having Meet Me in the Bathroom come out, both the book and the documentary. I think it kind of romanticized that era in a way that, you know, it only happens in retrospect.
Yeah.
Like as it was happening, you know, I'm sure it was cool to be there, but it was really, it feels like when that book and that movie came out, it kind of crystallized and like wrapped like your like mind around the whole scene and era and stuff like that.
Did you watch the documentary?
I didn't. I only read the book.
I heard it's not good.
Oh, yeah?
I read the book is awesome.
The book is great.
Yeah. I heard the documentary kind of sucks, but I didn't know.
And I also think that there is something about the want of New York to be a cultural like hub, you know, like feels like every 20 years New York becomes like the hotbed again. It's usually like a cool neighborhood that people can afford. A bunch of people start living there, creating cool stuff. Then the, you know, yogurt shops come in. Then the Lululemons drop.
Sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody can afford to live there, and it becomes lame. And then it takes another 20 years for them to find like an era. So, you know, the album title and like the write-up in the New York Times, it does feel like the hopes of New York coming back and being this edgy cultural force again is like being pinned on this guy.
Yeah. He's kind of embodying that with everything that he's doing. And it's definitely piqued enough interest. I mean, definitely with like the song "Girls," and then with like Charlie, he did a remix with Charlie XCX.
That's right.
And Billie Eilish, which like listening to this album, I feel like it's weird that they chose him to be that guy. Like pretty much based off of just Girls, I would say. They're like, this is our guy. It's probably more of like a character move than anything. Just to be like, yeah, this is the new face of the indie sleaze thing. Let's get back to it.
And Charlie XCX seems to be more provocative and edgy, or you know, attempting to be that way.
Yeah.
But after listening to the whole album, I think it actually does make more sense, and we'll talk about why I feel that way.
Yeah. Should we just get into it?
Let's get into it.
Let's
dude.
stop talking about this clown.
and get down to brass tacks.
I don't know why I
dude.
keep referring. I'm like, this loser, this idiot.
Fucking asshole, dude.
Nah, I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the first song off of What's Wrong with New York. It's called Open Up. Sounds so much like Girls right off the bat.
Yeah, this is because I didn't really listen to much else of the Sex EP other than Girls.
Yeah.
Like I listened to Girls and I felt like I got it.
Yeah, there was I mean, there's one song that was on that EP that's on this album.
Okay.
And there was another other two that were just kind of like whatever. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, after hearing this and some of the other stuff, it does like almost reach Greta Van Fleet level swagger jack on LCD sound system.
Yeah.
Like the delivery feels James Murphy, the noisy synths and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then the subject matter like of this song and some of the other songs is very, it's not as like edgy as Girls.
No.
Or as
no.
clever.
No.
And I think the hope after hearing Girls was hoping that it would be clever, push buttons, edgy, and then it just kind of sounds like a indie sleaze pop song.
Yes.
Like kind of forgettable.
Like you think you're gonna get this like filthy, raunchy, like, you know, Quentin Tarantino-esque album. Like you heard Girls and you're like, this guy's like breaking boundaries, doing things he's not supposed to do, and then it's just like, I've heard, you know, I listen to this, I'm like, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
So many times. And I can't quite put my finger on who it is. It's more of it's not exactly Greta Van Fleet, because that pulls right from Zeppelin. This is LCD Sound System. LCD Sound System, I think, is a little bit artsier than this.
Yeah, it's almost like they took the similar elements that LCD Sound System were pulling from, and like I feel like LCD kind of elevated them into something else, whereas he kind of like just drags them back to pop.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like these cool noisy bass synths.
Yeah.
This like singing approach where like maybe I can't sing, but I can talk. and then creating with those elements that you typically think of as like cooler, edgier music and making just kind of a pop song.
Yeah. I don't mind the song. I think the song's good. When it opened up the album, I was like, okay, I get it. I'm ready for what he's about to do, but it never felt like it went beyond this. He's also doing this like vocal approach where it's like the like, and I can't quite put my finger on who that is.
Yeah,
and
that
who
like
it
kind of
reminds me
trail
of.
off.
I don't know. There's a song by that band, or it was like an electronic group called Uncle, like UNKLE.
I don't think I ever listened to him.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but there was a song with Josh Homme who was like he took over.
That's
the
where they
vocal.
got on your
So that's
radar,
where I was
brother.
like, oh wow, what's this? Yeah, and the vocal delivery of that song is so like he does that the entire. It sounds just like this.
Okay.
And it kind of reminded me also of like some Viagra Boys.
Yeah.
I was just trying to put, and also LCD and Sound System. I didn't really listen to LCD Sound System that much until like a couple months ago when I had a day where I was just like doing yard work.
They're
and
so good.
unbelievable.
They're
so
so
good.
fucking good.
What's the one album that's not the big album, but the one possibly before it, Silver or something?
Sound of Silver.
Sound of Silver, yeah.
That's a great record. The first
so
three
good.
are just unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree that I do like the song, but I
Yeah.
like it in a kind of forgettable pop way.
Yeah.
Not in a way where I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It doesn't give me the hell yeah. It just makes me go, what? Why do I know this?
Yeah,
Why do I
exactly.
know this? This is good, but why have I heard this before?
Yeah, is it like the Rapture?
Yeah,
Is it
is
like
it the
that kind of thing, you know?
Is it the yeah yeahs? I'm not exactly sure, but it's just a culmination of all of those. It's a stew
It's
of all of those elements.
It's a stew of lower 40th Street or whatever fucking neighborhood in New
Yeah,
York.
fuck. You know, and I've never been to New York City. I still have
Proudly.
I proudly have not been to New York City. So I don't. Maybe I just don't get it.
No, you don't
know?
get it,
I
dude.
might not get it.
If you were on like a canal
Yeah.
street, you would get it, dude.
I'm a Pittsburgh boy all the way. Let's move on. This song is called "Good Time." This is off of the Sex EP.
Oh, was this on there as well?
Yeah, this was on there. I like this song a lot. In the context of the record, I don't really feel like it, stands out or gets buried much just because of like all the other songs are very similar to this. But on the Sex EP, I was always like, and this one.
Yeah, it's
If
girls
you haven't-
and this
girls, check out that one because that one's good. But I really like the chorus in this song. It's like really right here.
that like talky
Yeah.
sort of because he doesn't do a lot of this on the record.
Yeah.
It's mostly that shouty
Yeah.
sort of like snot nose thing.
Yeah.
Again, like the sounds, the aesthetics, I think are really cool. You know, because
Yeah.
he's pulling from cool influences.
Yeah.
It's just the subject matter of, you know, like we're having a good time, brother.
Yeah, the lyrics don't really do much. Like, oh, like we're all on the brink of suicide. Like,
Yeah.
all right, it's
Yeah.
it's the end of the world, and we just have to party. You know, like, and that's always great, but it's kind of tired.
Yeah, it's you know, I think I am struggling with like the promise of girls.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's almost like the first introduction that I got to him was his most clever
Yeah,
and smartest like song.
Yeah.
You know, that it felt like, oh, this is going to be like an identity
yeah,
of an artist. And from the first two, we're not quite living up to there.
Yeah.
It'll have like a clever line in there.
Yeah.
But overall, it's just kind of like, this is party music.
yeah. I think this song, out of any of the other ones on the album, comes the closest it comes on the album of like being raunchy and like real sexy again, but not by much.
No. And I think the sonics carry it more. Like, I think it's like the darkest sonically, like the bass tones and like, you know, it feels like a rave or something
Yeah.
like that.
And that's what it is. I mean, it's like, where are you really going to listen to this besides when you're just fucked up at a
Yeah.
club, you know?
Yeah, I think that might be the distinction between the Dare and maybe some of the influences that it's pulling from is like the yeah you could put on at a party
Yeah.
and like people can dance to it, but you can also
You
listen
can
to it
also
in your
chill.
headphones and
Yeah.
be like, hell yeah, this is a great song. Same thing with LCD. Whereas this would mostly work at a house party that you're
Yes.
not really paying attention to it.
I can't do lawn work to this.
No.
I'm just going to be like, I need to do cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. I need to shake my ass
I
behind
go
this
shake
Toro.
my fat ass,
self-propelled, yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. This one's called Perfume. This is one of the singles. I think the second single, official single from this record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Good Time came out with Girls. Like, it was just automatically already released because they were previous release in the EP. But this is like the first taste of the record. This song is fun, but it reminds me so much of like a Calvin Klein ad from like the 2000s that I'm like,
You can see the cuts on every guitar rip.
or
yeah.
like what like the first iPod commercials where they were just like the silhouettes dancing.
Yes.
Like, it sounds so commercial for some reason.
Yeah, I found this one pretty annoying.
Yeah.
Like the subject matter. Like there's a couple good lines like,
Yeah.
put it in my coffin so the worms can smell
Yeah.
me or whatever with the perfume. But for the most part, it felt like, all right, this guy really has nothing to say. We're
Yeah.
singing about fucking perfume,
That's
you know?
what- I wanted to like it so bad because I do love a song that is just kind of about nothing or just one thing, and you're making it so important, and you're overemphasizing it to like, you know, have a deeper meaning. But it really doesn't. Like, there's no deeper meaning to Perfume on this song.
Yeah, and
It's
like
just like he wears it.
yeah, and you know when it's hard not to draw the comparison to LCD, and they would do stuff like this, but elevate it like Drunk Girls.
Yeah, yeah.
And like how many great lines there are in Drunk
Right.
Girls, like you know, she knows love is like an astronaut; it always comes back, but it's never the same.
Yeah.
Like it only takes a couple really good lines to be able to like elevate a song like this from being a stupid song about perfume
Yeah.
to something like transgressive and
Yeah.
cool. And like the best is like, you know, I'm gonna wear perfume in hell so the devil can smell
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
And it's like, okay.
You're right. You put it the best where you're like, he really has nothing to say. That's
Yeah.
what I felt. I was just like, all right, it was Girls, and now it's just like it's kind of Girls he was able to do something with by being stupid and silly because, you know, he's saying how many he likes all type of girls and he's so horny and all. It's funny, but this one isn't really even that funny.
No.
It's just like, okay, Perfume. That's fine.
And it's okay to have nothing to say.
Yeah.
But it's just you're pulling from cool influences, so I'm raising the bar
Expecting
a little
more.
higher from you.
Yeah, I like the instrumental. I think the guitars sound cool.
I don't think that there's an instrumental on this record that I don't like. Like, I think pretty much the sounds,
with that.
sonics, instrumentation, I think is really cool, and it lives up to those influences. It's just a lot of time the subject matter and words where I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. My perfume. Yeah. Let's go to Girls.
Classic.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
I love this song. It's so goofy, and knowing that he wrote it to be goofy, kind of makes it all the better. You know, I'm glad it's not like some sort of like psyop where he like knew exactly what he was doing and he was trying to be filthy and raunchy, and it all paid off for him in the marketing end. It's just a fun, like, so many people like started hating him after this song. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's like the creative high watermark of the project.
Yeah.
Like it does feel like it has a point of view. It's fun. It's like transgressive.
Yeah.
Doesn't take itself too seriously. But knowing that the birth of the project may have been because this song started taking off, it feels like, oh, we did this kind of like one-off thing, and now I have to try to build an identity around this, and it's not really who I am.
Now I have to build some lore around it.
Yeah, and it's like the rest of it just doesn't kind of live up to this.
Yeah.
There
might just be a substitute teacher who's just, he likes girls, dude.
He's like,
any kind.
I'm just trying to cash in and then go back to teaching, AP Lit, dude.
The kids love me, dude. I'm the fucking Robin Williams at that high school.
I'm the Patch Adams of the school. There was something that I read, too, that I think one of his influences might be Calvin Harris.
I saw that this morning.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, because, I mean, Calvin Harris is a guy that came into my knowledge by dating Taylor Swift and then left by breaking up by Taylor Swift. That's the only thing I knew about him. But I went back and listened to his song called The Girls. Off the album I Created Disco, which we'll talk about on the next one. And it does have kind of like a similar indie sleaze LCD sound system sort of vibe.
And that song is more like raw, and it sounds like weird and disjointed because it was an early release from that time period. I don't remember when that was released.
07, I think.
Yeah. So a little bit later. But yeah, you can tell that it's a weird thing to be like, one of his influences is Calvin Harris. Like, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
But like, he is, I mean, I guess took a lot from that song particularly, and then with I Destroyed Disco, he's definitely trying to do a callback to I Created Disco.
Yeah, and I feel like there's another callback coming up later to another one of his influences. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to know if he's making these things so that you do relate the music to that.
Yeah.
Or knowing that you will and kind of like, you know, like rubbing your face in it or something. I don't know.
I read that he's a huge, like, some magazine did an article with him, and like the interviewer said he's a huge music nerd and he's just shy. And I kind of can get, I get that after hearing this record. Like, you could tell he's just like, he loves this kind of shit, and he's building a world kind of around stuff that's already come out and is popular. So that totally makes sense to me. And just with all of the influences coming together, and you can kind of put your finger on a band or an artist that existed in the past and being like, oh, that's kind of like this and that's kind of like this. It feels more like a tribute, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so. I think he is being like reverent in a way, because like, this is a cool sounding song.
I like the song. Yeah, I like the bass in the song, and I like how the lyrics, kind of lock in with the instrumental. He's like, "Where's the bass?" And then the
bass comes
that,
in.
Like, stroby bass starts coming in.
Yeah, again, like, and I think that this is like the fifth song in a row that comes in right around 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, we're burning through this right now.
And I think that the Dare works best in the 2-minute 20 chunk.
Yeah. He's the KC Rocket.
Yes, just we only need that minute up top. And like, that's and talking about him as like a musical nerd, like James Murphy was the same way.
Yes, yeah.
Like, you know, he was able to build this persona and sound where you're like, oh, this guy's so hip, he's so cool, and he's a huge dork who loves like analog synths and stuff like that. And that's really like, if you're gonna make this type of music, I think you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't give him like too much shit for pulling from those influences because he's at least doing them well on like a sonic approach.
Yeah.
The kind of like the lyrical subject matter persona approach, I think that he's still maybe finding what this is.
It's a little flat. It's so like exactly what you'd expect by listening to this, and you expect a little bit something more. You expect more raunchy stuff, but it's more just about music. Like, it feels like it's about music.
Sort of,
you know
yeah.
I mean? Like he's like this song. It's like, you got a demo, I want to hear it. Yeah, like it's about finding your voice in, I guess, doing something that's like a revival like this. I don't know. It feels. I'll get to it at the end. I'll come back to it. Let's listen to "You're Invited." This is one of the singles as well. This is probably my least favorite song off the album.
Yeah, it's interesting that he released "Perfume" and "You're Invited" because those are two of my least favorite songs on the record.
Me too.
And this song becomes more interesting at 90 seconds. Like it kind of switches, but it feels like the longest 90 seconds on the whole album.
It's very flat. His vocal delivery is just it gets so grating after a while.
Yeah.
Just, "You're invited," and it's like that's the chorus is just him saying that, and then like here's the chorus, and then when he starts the second verse, it also starts with "You're Invited."
Yeah.
Like, how fucking long is this? Like, it just keeps going.
And probably not a direct influence, but Dismemberment Plan has a song called "You Are Invited."
Yeah.
That repeats "You Are Invited" like a bunch of times. So
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound much like this, but it just adds another wrinkle to this thing of like, do we have an original idea? You know what I mean? Like we have good ideas that other people have had,
but an original one. Where is that
sick.
coming up?
Yeah.
Where can we get one of those?
Did you find any of those in the Meet Me in the Bathroom documentary?
Oh, my
like this
God.
part's kind of cool.
But this reminds this also sounds like something that's already been done. I don't know if it was back in the day, but like even more recently, like this sounds like the chorus of that one, the Death from Above 1979 comeback single, Trainwreck 1979. Like that is what catches my ear.
Yeah, and I wasn't even thinking of Death from Above, but certain things like with the bass tone and like melodically, sometimes it does kind of have that.
They weren't really a part of the whole indie sleaze movement, so I don't know how much you can like lump them into everything, but they did have those like dance punk characteristics with their music, and the lead singer of that band, Sebastian Granger, he put out a solo record like years ago called "Yours to Discover," and it had like they have a similar voice, just in tone and with melody as well. But that album and some things that Death from Above 1979 have done recently are like this New York kind of discovery type of theme. Like they have 2 songs in their most recent album called like NYC Power Elite. And then he has a song called Let's Move to New York City or something like that. And it all just reminds me of that. Like, it feels like that guy kind of did that on a much smaller scale without being noticed a long time ago. And I'm just like, it's just, again, another wrinkle.
Yeah.
He probably was not even aware of that. Maybe he was.
You know, if he's a music nerd from that time period, who knows?
Maybe he was. Okay, yeah. Let's move on to All Night. It starts off just so similar than everything else does.
Yeah, I think this song and the song afterwards are really where kind of whatever conceit I thought the project was operating on kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Because like this subject matter could be a Kesha song. Mm-hmm. You know, like Up All Night, I woke up in my clothes.
Yeah. Woke up at noon.
Yeah. And This is one of the longer songs. It's at like
Yeah.
3.5.
And it feels like forever because
Yeah.
it's just a minute longer at like a regular track length. And I think this is a fun one. I like
I love this synth sound.
Yeah, and I really like the gang vocals, the chanting, the oh no, like that's really fun, and it kind of gets really big at the end as well. But yeah, I feel like I'm getting lost in the sauce a little bit of just how similar everything is sounding, and the synth sounds and the melodies are just so one note, I guess.
Yeah, and this and the song that comes after it, I feel like are the ones that most feel just like a conventional pop song.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was talking about earlier when we brought up like Charlie XCX and Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that pivot to working with just like contemporary pop acts is going to be that difficult, because you have this guy that can make really good sounding stuff and stuff that kind of works just as a conventional pop song.
Yeah.
But pulling from an era that has like a coolness factor to it. I think that at this point in the record, and maybe I have unfair expectations because of the song Girls, but it also seems like that's what he wanted you to think of him as.
Yeah.
Like you look at the Girls cover, the Sex EP cover.
Yeah.
You see his cover on Spotify. It's like girls' feet in his face and stuff
Yeah.
like that. He kind of billed himself as this like wild man. I
Yeah.
don't give a shit. And then, a song about being up all night. How
Yeah.
many of these do we have, man?
So many, a lot, and I agree. Yeah, it's just a little bit. Yeah, you don't really know if you've built this up, or if he's just done an incredible job at marketing himself as like the face of crazy, wild nightlife in New York City. But yeah, this song is just kind of. You're right. It could have been by anybody. It sounds like it was written in a factory and handed. It could have been handed off to Kesha, I guess.
Yeah, cooler sounds. Like that's also going to be my note throughout the record. Like there's no. Sonically, there's no song that I point to and say that's lame.
Yeah,
like every song sounds cool.
It's all fun.
Yeah.
It's all fun. It's just like, as a serious artist, I'm not really taking him seriously yet. Let's move on to Elevation. This one is like, I think the most different on the record because it feels more emotional and not like just fun club music. But at the same time, it feels like an ode to like the after the club drive home or walk home.
Yeah.
You're just like, and then you're fucked up and you walk home and you take a taxi and you don't know where you're going. And
she left
lights.
without getting a number and you're just looking at that calendar.
It's not really like that introspective. It's just like, the lights will take over you. It's like something like that. That's what it feels like to me. Just like getting that wave. It's still New York.
Yeah.
It's still all about New York.
Yeah, it's still, it's leaving the club at 4 a.m.
It's leaving the club, yeah.
And yeah, this is like the one song that he kind of tries to actually sing on. And it does sort of betray the persona of the other like sleazier grungy stuff where he's just like, can't run from love,
Yeah.
It does like, there's a certain like disconnect between what I feel like I was sold this project to be and what it is.
It's such an outlier. Like I was happy to hear a song that was different, and then like after listening to it, like the first time I heard it, I was like, that one's really cool." Then second listen, I'm like, it's kind of pissing me off that it's not like as fun. Like he needs to do this maybe more, or have a different approach to the lyrical theme with a longer, more expansive, like psychedelic song like this. It's just okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I love the way the synths sound. I like the way the track builds and swells and then gets smaller and stuff like that. And it's, it really, it all keeps coming down to like, I don't feel like I understand who the Dare is or what they're trying
100%.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Here's Movement.
I like this song. I do think it's interesting because we talked about the I destroyed disco.
Yeah.
I created disco. LCD Sound System has a song called Movement off their first record.
Oh, do they?
And the song is about like a movement that isn't based in like the culture. You know, it's like a movement, you know, it's like with the culture, with no culture. You know, it kind of feels like almost he would be talking about this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this
okay.
this sort of thing that is spawned, that's disconnected from the roots that built the thing.
Yeah.
You know? And
That's interesting.
yeah, and
It's almost like foreshadowing. It's like he knew this kind of guy was going to come along.
but also then he has to know that that song exists.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
So-
I'm sure it's some sort of ode to that in a way.
Yeah, almost like him
Yeah.
admitting, like,
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't there in '01
Yeah.
to see the first Strokes gig or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, you know, I'm catching up at this stuff afterwards. Is this like kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference to this is what people are going to say about this project anyway, so here it is.
That's an interesting point. I didn't know about that song, but that's really interesting. Maybe he is self-aware enough to be like, yeah, like he has that meta kind of tongue-in-cheek part of it too. I didn't catch on to that. As you know, we don't do much research. on
The
this
research
show.
cannon
The research
is about to
cannon.
get blasted
It's
on.
we're blasting it again. I thought this song was just kind of another, you know, fun one. It feels a little bit more skeletal. It reminds me of that Viagra Boys song that was on Cave World about the creepy crawlers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Where it's like, the creepy crawlers are in my mind.
The vaccine.
The vaccine.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know if it's that one, but it's one of the songs off that album. But yeah, it's I guess him doing something that's not as clubby and dancey, even though it kind of is at the same time.
It's a little heavier and noisier,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
why I liked it.
Yeah.
But like, you know, the LCD Sound System song was about like movement and the idea of like a movement, like a cultural movement. And this song is about the act of actually moving.
Yes,
and I think that kind of describes maybe
Yeah.
the difference between
It's like
those
you're
two
not-
projects.
You're not getting it. It's like he doesn't really get it. you
Yeah.
know? It's just funny that like it's definitely one of his biggest influences.
It has to
It has
be.
to be. Yeah. Here's the last song. You Can Never Go Home. Yeah. Weird closer, I think. I felt like Elevation probably should have been the closer here.
Feels like the more logical one.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at this point in the record, I'm just starting to feel. I mean, it's the last song. It doesn't really feel different to me. It's not ending on some sort of grand note. It just feels like kind of another one in the books for the Dare.
Yeah, he's doing a little more musically, he's singing again.
Yeah, he's trying to. I mean, his melody is just so similar each time, and just the way he can or cannot sing is just so, yeah, it's very flat the whole time. And again, feels like another going home from the club song.
Definitely. And yeah, it's like it's not a bad song, but it all kind of sits in the same range.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like it's kind of middle of the road. Like
Yeah.
very cool sounding middle of the road
Yeah.
that in certain like applications may be exactly what you want.
Yeah, and it I can't quite put my finger on who it reminds me of, but that like the background vocal is like, you can never go home. Not sure who that is, but that's somebody.
Yeah.
There's a song that sounds just like that, or a band that did that as their cornerstone that he's kind of taking from again. And I don't even know if there is, but it just sounds like shit I've heard before.
And I think part of it too is, you know, I'm sure that James Murphy also picked ruthlessly
Yeah.
from his inspirations.
Yeah.
But like his inspirations were like, you know, Can.
Yeah.
And like weirder bands that weren't that popular. Whereas like everybody that he is
Yeah.
pulling from had an iPod commercial.
Right, yeah.
And they're like the last rock and roll bands anybody ever gave a shit about.
Yeah.
So there's part of that too where it's like, I think that, you know, he's not doing something unsimilar to the people that came before him, but the like and culture is also in a way where people are sticking around for way longer than they used to.
Yeah.
It's like if you were big in the 70s, by like 2000, nobody gave a shit about you, typically.
Right.
Whereas now, like, you know, most bands are, like, from that era are as big as they've ever been with streaming and stuff like that. So the stuff that he's pulling is like immediately like, you're like, oh,
you
that's...
can point to it right away.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I don't know if it's just like our age, you know, getting older and being like, you can, like, now, since back in the day we were young enough to like not know who those bands were pulling from, but now since like we can still remember it very vividly, we're like, oh yeah, that just sounds exactly like that. And it might be unfair to do that because every artist has their influences, you know, if they wear them on their sleeve as obviously as this or not. I guess you can't really tell, or we weren't able to really tell. But yeah, it makes me think if like people that heard LCD Sound System were just like, oh yeah,
that's Bowie, dude.
That's Bowie. Yeah,
that's Talking Heads.
But probably, maybe. But like, I think they were doing. There was a creative outlet at that time where like people were really pulling from each other as well.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, all of LCD Sound System's best songs are
LCDC,
like... Yeah, LCDC, dude.
That's
going to be me, just like playing LCD Sound System songs through a Marshall stack and an SG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like all their best songs are 6 minutes long.
Yeah, they're
typically playing the exact same thing over and over again. And the Dare has a hard time like maintaining a 2 minute and 20 second attention, like, from me. So I think that they are in general doing something more interesting with those influences.
Yeah.
Whereas it sometimes feels like the Dare is taking these influences and trying to like distill them down into a pop setting.
Yeah, just trying to be like, well, people's attention spans are so short these days, we got to make it 2.5 minutes. But like the whole point of like house music and EDM and dance music is for it to go on for a very long time, because you're creating a vibe that you don't really want to end, you know, like bands like The Prodigy or something like that. Like their songs were typically longer because they had just parts of the songs that just went on for 2 minutes that were just instrumental, where they just tried shit. Same with LCD Sound System, same with Uncle. And yeah, he's not really doing that, and I guess it's cool, but like the pop songs he's making would be so much more interesting if he did do some wild shit in between, like extending him out a little bit more just to try some shit on you know, just to try some weird synthy shit or vocally
like to break yourself out of that. Like James Murphy was really good at that. He wasn't like the best conventional singer.
Yeah.
But like he could find 3 or 4 different cool melodies to go over the same thing. So you're hearing the same thing, but you're like, oh, this feels like a chorus now just by the way he's approaching it. You know?
Like adding some samples in there or something. I feel like that's kind of missing here as well. Like it would make it more interesting if we were getting samples from older songs and working them in a cool way, like kind of how like I don't want to bring everything back to the Prodigy,
hey, man,
just because I like
Keith
the
Flint,
Prodigy, but like that is a part of, you know, that was a big part of this type of music back in the day, of adding that kind of those cool little bits that makes your songs more interesting
and can recontextualize something that you're familiar with and put it in like a cool new way,
rather than just like straight up copying the formula, you know, and that's really it. Do you want to give closing arguments?
Yeah.
Have we kind of done it already?
I feel like we kind of have.
Yeah.
You know, I know that we criticized this album a lot, but I certainly didn't hate it.
No.
I just think that, you know, I was sold a bill of goods with girls, dude. You know, I was expecting something else, and like the people that wrote about it. Like the press releases that came out where it was like, oh, this edgy button pushing, you know, we're pushing the limits, you know, and you get there and, you know, the creative force behind it doesn't feel like he has anything particular to say. He doesn't feel like he has a full grasp on what this persona of the Dare is. You know, it's the album's 27 minutes.
Yeah.
And he repeats like New York to L.A.
Yeah.
a couple times. It's
LA to New York, New York to LA.
And drugs and
Yeah.
girls and so yeah, I don't think that there's a lot of like meat on the bone here as a creative project.
Yeah.
But if you were at a like house party and you just hit play on this and it's playing in the background, maybe some people are dancing or something like that, I don't think anybody's going to be like, turn that shit off.
Yeah.
It works in that context. And I know he's doing like a lot of DJ sets and stuff like that. So maybe that is his, like, he's not thinking about this as like a headphones album.
Yeah.
It's an album that when you play it at the club, people dance.
Yeah.
I think people will do that. It's not something that I'm going to return to, and by like the third listen, I was ready to not listen to this again, and I just wanted to listen to Manning Fireworks finally. So I'm thinking, like a 5.8.
Yeah. I was thinking so similarly. Like I have exactly pretty much the same thoughts as you. Like the first time I heard this record, I thought it was fun, but I was immediately disappointed. It's 10 tracks. It just feels like 10 singles, and I usually just hate when albums do that, when they're not really giving me that like nugget or two of like why it makes it a great record to listen to in your headphones. And I get that he's probably just going for like, it's just supposed to be fun. And it's also his first record too as this project. So he's definitely finding his footing. It just feels like the press and media are putting so much on this guy because of Dare and because of his like collaboration with Charlie XCX as this like new, filthy, fun, go-to it person of dance music, and I just don't like, it's so undeserved after hearing this record. You're just like, it's a fine, fun record that it just feels like a tribute to his influences. Like that's all it feels like. It's every song I'm just going, oh, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. And I love indie sleaze. There's so many bands in that genre and that time period that like ended too early. Like The Rapture, I wish like The Rapture was still going. Like Death from Above 1979 called it quits after, two records or one record back in the day, and then they're back together now. But
yeah.
And the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, I mean, they had a good amount of records, but
yeah, a lot of that stuff didn't survive the era.
Exactly. So I'm all for trying to bring it back. I felt like I was gonna get it with this, and I just didn't. It was just like, yeah, it's fun. I give him all the credit for trying and making something that is a fun listen. I do think that he was making something just to be like, yeah, put it on in the club, you'll dance, and it'll be fine. But as you said, like, no one's going to ask to turn it off if you're, like, sitting around, just listening to it casually. I actually think people might, like, if Perfume was like on at just like a hang or like in the car,
I might tell you to
someone might be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, not in a necessarily bad way. It's just like, "What is this song?" It's
it has
goofy.
like a YouTube parody from that time period.
Yeah.
Like the Shoes video. It almost feels like that, but in song form.
Shoes is kind of like Perfume and Girls a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Girls is definitely the reason this album got its hype, and I feel like it's the reason this whole project might have hype in the future as well.
And probably why people might be disappointed by it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the filthy mess, just raunchy, naked, like covered in cocaine.
Yeah.
It's more just about having fun in New York City.
Being up all night, dude.
Being up all night. Yeah, he's wearing his influences on his sleeve, and that's cool. But yeah, he's really got to find his voice. So I was dead on 6.
Oh, all right.
That's what I felt. So
5.9.
I think that's a 5.9. Yeah, out of 10, and that's a. Is that a?
It's a strong yeah.
That's
whatever.
a strong yeah. Whatever. Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not light. It's. It could have been a hell yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been hell yeah with a couple tweaks, but yeah, I was mostly just wanting to listen to Manning Fireworks as well. Yeah, Evan's got to piss. I'm closing out the show by myself for the first time ever.
Sorry.
It's a 5.9 out of 10. Thanks everyone for listening. Tell us what you thought of the record. This is so wild just to be here by myself. I feel like Mr. Rogers, you know. I might just fire these two motherfuckers. I'm just gonna exist in this for a second. Yeah, go listen to the album. Tell us what you thought. Put something in the comments below. Tell us why we're stupid or why we're smart, and subscribe on Patreon, and follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.